People are going to betray you. That's not a guess, not a possibility. It's a certainty. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you'll stop living like a victim. Do you want to know why? Because human beings are, by nature, profoundly self-centered. And no, I'm not talking about the childish kind of selfishness, the kind that refuses to share a piece of cake. I'm talking about a primal, ancestral selfishness, a wild instinct programmed over thousands of years to prioritize personal survival above any sense of loyalty. You think betrayal is the exception, that it only happens when something breaks. You're mistaken. Betrayal is the norm. Loyalty is the exception. And Carl Jung understood this deeply. He didn't shout it, but he revealed it through shadow work, through the exploration of the unconscious. Don't trust the mask of civilization we all wear, because behind it, there are teeth, and they are sharp. Have you been betrayed? Welcome. Are you waiting for a logical, emotional, or spiritual explanation? You won't find one. Because betrayal doesn't come from reason. It comes from fear, from desire, from an inner need that outweighs any promise someone made to you. Do you want the truth? Here it is. They didn't betray you because you did something wrong. They betrayed you because it was convenient. And that's all. Most people don't betray out of malice. They do it out of benefit. Because at some point, you stopped being useful. Because someone else offered more. Because their fear of loss was greater than their loyalty to you. It's not personal, it's worse. It's structural. It's embedded in how the human mind functions. And yet you keep acting surprised. You placed your trust as if the world was built on principles, on morality, on ethics. But the world runs on interests. Loyalty is a luxury. Few can afford it. Want a brutal truth? Never expect someone to act in your favor if it goes against their own. Because the moment their interests collide with your well-being, they will crush you. And they won't even feel guilty, because the human mind is brilliant at justifying its actions. They'll betray you, turn their back on you, and convince themselves they did the right thing. They'll say they had no choice, that it was an accident, that they didn't want to hurt you. And the worst part? They'll believe it. They tell themselves that story so they can sleep at night. But you're the one left with the wreckage. Let me make it even clearer. If you expect the world to be fair to you, just because you're fair to others, you're heading straight toward martyrdom. No one will repay your kindness. No one will respect your values if they clash with their desires. And here comes the most painful question. Why did that person betray me? The answer is simple. Because they could. Because there were no consequences. Because it cost them nothing. And here comes the first psychological punch. People are only as loyal as you make them be. You think fidelity comes from love, from affection, from shared history. Number fidelity is born from fear. Fear of losing something. A relationship, a privilege, a position, a sense of status. When someone betrays you without a second thought, what they're really saying is, you weren't that important, or at least not as important as what they got in return. And that hurts more than the betrayal itself, because it reveals something you didn't want to see. You overestimated your place in their life. Jung taught that betrayal often reveals the contents of the shadow, the denied truths, the parts of ourselves and others we don't want to acknowledge. He said that what we don't make conscious will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. People don't fail you because they were ever truly with you. They were with the image of you, the benefit of you, the version of you that was easy. But once that version changes, they vanish. They'll look you in the eye, tell you that you can trust them. swear they'll be there for you, but what they won't say out loud is the silent condition, as long as it doesn't cost me anything. Have you noticed how, in the hardest moments of your life, most people disappear? It's because true loyalty has a price. It requires sacrifice, and most aren't willing to pay that price. They'd rather invent excuses, say you've changed, that you're different now, that you're negative, demanding, toxic, whatever it takes to justify their absence. And here comes another punch of truth. Betrayal doesn't hurt because of what we lose. It hurts because of what it reveals. It reveals who we were in that relationship. Naive, idealistic, blind, devoted. And it reveals who they truly were. Opportunistic, self-serving, unstable, cowardly. The most terrifying part of betrayal isn't the act itself, but the unveiling, the realization that everything you believed was a lie. And that's where paranoia begins. You start to look at everyone with suspicion. You no longer know who is who. Because if that person, the one you trusted blindly, was capable of stabbing you in the back, then what is everyone else capable of? Distrust floods in, and with it, loneliness. But here's the part no one talks about. At this point, loneliness becomes a privilege, because after a betrayal that is real, deep, and brutal, you can no longer afford to be surrounded by wolves in disguise. Betrayal is a purge, a painful cleansing, a necessary severing. And yes, it costs you dearly, because you still love that person. You still remember what you shared. You still wish they'd come back. But what you're longing for isn't them. It's the illusion. And that illusion is destroying you. You must let it go. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden aspects of ourselves we refuse to see. Betrayal brings the shadow to light. Not just theirs, yours. What doesn't kill you can make you stronger, but only if you understand it. Because if you don't, what doesn't kill you will leave you broken, bitter, distrustful. Not stronger, just more closed off. Do you want to grow from betrayal? Then stop idealizing. Stop justifying. Stop romanticizing pain. Accept that human beings are infinitely capable of failure, that no one is immune. And yes, even you, at some point, have been the betrayer in someone else's story. Betrayal exists in all of us, but so does the power to choose, to decide who you will allow to hurt you again. If someone betrays you once, that's on them. If they do it twice, that's on you. Because here's the rule no one wants to accept. Your responsibility isn't to avoid betrayal. It's to ensure it doesn't happen again. And that's only possible in one way, by refusing to idealize. See people as they are, not as you wish them to be. Ask uncomfortable questions. Watch how they behave when no one's watching. Listen to how they speak about others, because that's how they'll speak about you when you're not around. And most importantly, learn to disappear when someone betrays you. Don't explain. Don't beg. Don't seek revenge. Don't try to understand with logic something born from cowardice. Just disappear. The harshest punishment for a traitor is your absence, your silence, your void. Because traitors don't expect real consequences. They expect drama. They expect tears. They expect attention. Give them the one thing they don't expect, nothing. And build from the pain, the rage, the abyss. Make that betrayal your foundation. Not to prove anything to them, but to remind yourself that you're alive, that you're awake, that you don't need anyone who can't hold true to their word. Remember this: betrayal reveals, but it does not define. You are not what was done to you. You are what you do with what was done to you. And if you can stare betrayal in the eyes without becoming what you hate, then you have won. Because right there, in the fire, in the silence of abandonment, is where the unbreakable are forged, the ones who need no one to be invincible. And you know what's the hardest part? When someone betrays you, they don't just shatter your trust in them, they also break the image you had of yourself. Because if that person, the one you gave your affection, time, and secrets to, could destroy you without blinking, then what does that say about you? About your judgment, your discernment, your worth? Betrayal has two blades. One points outward, to them. The other stabs inward, to you. Because when someone betrays you, you don't just think, they failed me. You think something far more dangerous. I was foolish enough to believe they wouldn't. And that thought, that's the one that breaks you. Because it makes you doubt yourself. It shakes your grip on reality. It makes you question everything. It paralyzes you. And here's where the devastation lies. Betrayal doesn't just destroy relationships. It destroys identities. Your identity was tied to that person, that story, that trust. And when it all collapses, you're left without a ground to stand on. You don't know who you are anymore, because you can't look at yourself with the same eyes. You can't even trust your intuition. Do you see it now? Betrayal is an inner fracture. It doesn't stay in the act. It settles into your perception. It becomes an echo, a constant doubt, a wound no longer on the skin, but in the way you see everything. And the worst part? You learn to live with it. You learn to distrust everyone, to never show too much, to never fully give, to live halfway, believing that it protects you, when in truth, it just locks you away. Do you know what betrayal does? It turns you into what you swore you'd never be. Cold, calculating, shielded. But that shield, the one you think protects you, also keeps you from feeling, from connecting, from creating anything real. Betrayal leaves a scar so deep that if you're not careful, it turns you into a betrayer too. Because when trust dies, when everything feels like a threat, when you live anticipating the next wound, then, without knowing it, you betray yourself, your empathy, your essence, your ability to trust. It's the perfect cycle of trauma. I was hurt, so now I protect myself by hurting first. They won't betray me again, because I won't give them anything they could use against me. But there you are, alone, armed to the teeth, and hollow inside. And this is where something even darker appears: self-deception. After betrayal, the psyche activates a survival instinct, and one of its most subtle defenses is rewriting the story. You keep telling yourself it wasn't that important, that you saw it coming, that it didn't hurt, that it was for the best. But none of that is true. You do it to avoid breaking even more. And I understand you. Jung did too. We've all done it. But it's a slow poison. Because the more you suppress pain, the more you lose touch with yourself. You start creating false versions of who you are. Strong on the surface, shattered inside. Versions that smile while they bleed. That say, "I'm fine," while they quietly collapse. Want to know what Carl Jung would say about that? That you're drifting away from the self, that you're repressing your shadow, that you're denying your own humanity out of fear of suffering. Because betrayal forces you to choose. Either it destroys you or it transforms you. Here's a brutal truth. You cannot avoid betrayal, but you can choose what to do with the wound. You can let it rot you from the inside, or you can turn it into a mirror, one that shows you who you were, who you became in that relationship, what you ignored, what you tolerated, what piece of yourself you sold to hold on to something already broken. I know it sounds cruel, but there's a part of you that allowed the betrayal. You didn't cause it, but you did endure it. Because, at some level, we all know exactly who we're dealing with. We just pretend not to see when it benefits us. You cling to false signals. You ignore the red flags. You justify toxic behaviors because the need to feel loved, to belong, outweighs your instinct to protect yourself. Until one day, everything shatters, and there you are, alone, holding the fragments of a truth you never wanted to face. Then the deepest fear arrives. What if I can never trust again? And it's not just about the other. It's the world, the structure, the invisible threads of every connection. Everything feels corrupted. You believe loyalty no longer exists. But that's not the truth. Betrayal makes you see the world as a battlefield. But reality is more subtle. Not everyone will fail you. But you must learn to see differently, to watch what people do, not just what they say, to notice how they treat those who offer them nothing, to observe how they behave when no one's watching. Because that's where the truth lives, in the invisible. And yes, you'll have to let go of many connections. You'll need time alone. You'll need to rebuild your intuition from zero. But that's the only way back to yourself. Because betrayal isn't overcome with anger. It's healed through reconstruction. Rebuilding your inner world. Redefining your limits. Healing your identity. And when you do that, only then, you can trust again. Not blindly, not like before, but with clarity, with strength, with awareness, with open eyes. Don't let a betrayal define your entire story. But don't ignore it either. Don't drown the pain in noise. Don't pretend it didn't leave a mark. Because if you do, you're condemning yourself to repeat it. Watch it, study it, learn from it, then rise, wiser, colder, more selective, but never empty. Now let's go even deeper into the darkness. We already talked about the wounded ego, about rebuilding, but now we shift focus to something even more disturbing, the silent betrayal, the one you can't see at first, but it eats you alive. Not an action, but an absence, a quiet abandonment, a void. Listen closely. Not all betrayals come with a knife. Some arrive disguised as indifference, as silence, as emotional distance, and those are the deadliest ones. You brace yourself for the obvious betrayal, the one that comes with conflict, shouting, a break. But you're not prepared for the passive betrayal, the one where the person you needed the most simply wasn't there. They didn't stab you in the back, but they stood by while others did. They didn't speak ill of you, but they stayed silent when everyone else did. They didn't hurt you actively, but they stopped caring for you when you needed it the most. And here comes the question that breaks your soul. Who hurt you more? The one who betrayed you, or the one who didn't defend you? That silence, that absence, that neutrality disguised as, I don't want to get involved. That's the kind of betrayal that wounds the deepest, because you're left speechless. You can't point it out. You can't accuse. There's no evidence, just a visceral feeling that someone who should have been there simply wasn't. And the saddest part? Sometimes that same person still tells you they love you, that they respect you, that they care. But they do it from a distance, with hollow words, lukewarm gestures, as if saying, I'm here, was enough, even when they're not. And you know what truly hurts about this silent betrayal? It forces you to realize you were more alone than you thought, that the safety net you believed in was just an illusion. And this brings us to a brutal truth: betrayal as disillusionment. Because when someone betrays you, it's not just the act that hurts, it's the collapse of an entire narrative, a story you built in your head. You had convinced yourself this person was different, that they would never do that to you, that you were special. But that story was false. You realize it wasn't a relationship between two real people. It was a relationship between you and the idea you had of them. And that's when the next crack appears. You start doubting your ability to see reality clearly. You don't know anymore if someone is truly loyal, or if you just need them to be. You begin projecting betrayal even where it doesn't exist, because now your mind runs a new program. Better to be cautious than to bleed again. But living that way isn't living. It's surviving. It's building walls so high even you can't climb out. Now comes the point no one dares to face. Sometimes the true traitor is you, toward yourself, because deep down you knew. There were signs, inconsistencies, uncomfortable silences, but you chose not to see them. You stayed quiet, tolerated, adapted, because your fear of losing that relationship was stronger than your love for yourself. And that is the hardest betrayal to admit, the one you inflicted on yourself. And do you know why you did it? Because you were addicted to hope, to fantasy, to the belief that if you gave your best, the other would finally see your worth. But that's a lie. Not everyone knows how to receive. Not everyone sees value. There are people who, no matter how much love you give them, will always feel empty, because their loyalty doesn't depend on your giving. It depends on their void. And here's the next truth. Some people betray not because you failed, but because their soul is broken. And that is not your burden to carry. You must understand. Some people can't hold on to anything healthy. When they come across something real, they sabotage it, not out of malice, but out of trauma, programming, emotional poverty. And you stood there thinking you could save them, heal them, teach them. But you cannot save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You cannot hold a relationship with someone who is used to destroying everything the moment it starts to work. And the worst part? When they betray you, they don't even see it as betrayal. They'll say you suffocated them, that they didn't feel like themselves, that they needed space, that they weren't ready. And you'll be left there, soul shattered, while they move on as if nothing happened. Because yes, some people can betray you and sleep like a baby. Why? Because they don't feel what you feel. Because they don't speak the same emotional language. Because for them, loyalty is just a word, not a commitment. And that's where you need to make a cut, a break, a reset. Because if you don't, you'll keep attracting the same kind of people. People who only love you when you're silent, when you don't demand, when you don't shine too brightly. That too is a form of betrayal. Betraying yourself just to be accepted. Do you know how many times you've dimmed your light so you wouldn't disturb others? How often have you hidden your strength, your talent, your ambition, just to avoid making others feel insecure? How many times have you allowed yourself to be invalidated, diminished, ignored, just so you wouldn't seem like too much? That's betrayal too, but one that moves from you toward yourself. Carl Jung once reminded us of the masks we wear. The world doesn't just ask us to conform, it demands we forget ourselves. And I'll tell you this, we suffer so deeply from betrayal that we've learned to rename it experience, lesson, life. But no, some things should never happen. And when they do, you must call them by their real name, betrayal. Don't dress them up. Don't edit them. Don't excuse them. Name them. Because only when you name them can you begin to heal. And more importantly, only then can you choose. Choose to never again Place your soul in the hands of someone who cannot even hold their own. Choose not to shrink yourself to fit. Choose to be alone rather than poorly accompanied or mistreated. Here's one of the hardest truths. Most people don't want someone strong. They want someone manageable. So, if you decide to be free, authentic, unstoppable, prepare yourself. They will try to betray you, not because you're weak, but because your strength threatens them. It reminds them of everything they're too afraid to be. And that's the moment you'll realize you're no longer the victim. You've become the threat. Betrayal doesn't just reveal who others are. It reveals you. It shows your ability to rise, to become harder without becoming cruel, to trust again, but without blindness, to love, but never at the cost of your dignity. Because in the end, that's what saves you. Not that people stop betraying you, but that you learn not to let betrayal take away who you are. And that is power. And now that we've reached this point, I'm going to tell you something maybe no one has dared to tell you your whole life. Betrayal is the baptism of the strong. Yes, it hurts. It breaks you. It empties you. But it also awakens you. It initiates you. It rips the blindfold from your eyes, once and for all. Because before betrayal, you were only a version of yourself, edited, believing in fairy tales, eternal promises, unbreakable bonds. But after, you're bare, alone, raw, but real. And that, strange as it sounds, is the beginning of everything. The person who rises after betrayal is not the one who fell. They no longer need mirrors to define themselves. They no longer sell themselves for a drop of affection. They no longer confuse company with connection, attention with love, silence with peace. Betrayal is alchemy. It takes your innocence and melts it into wisdom. It takes your wound and, if you dare to face it, gives you back something no one can teach or sell: vision. And you know what someone who has seen betrayal in all its forms and survived becomes? Not paranoid, selective. They no longer need to fit in everywhere because they've realized not every space deserves them. They no longer beg for loyalty because they've learned real loyalty is silent. It doesn't need promises. If you know how to read betrayal, it shows you who deserves to see you up close and who was only ever near for their own comfort. That's why what once looked like a curse was really a cleansing. And if you've come this far, something in you already knows. Something shifted, something realigned. And you can't look at the world, at others, or at yourself the same anymore. Because you're not the same as when this message began. And that is priceless. So listen carefully. The next time someone betrays you, don't react like before. Don't beg for explanations. Don't give speeches. Don't threaten to leave. Don't cry in front of someone who has no soul to comfort you. Just leave, quietly, without drama, without turning back. Because betrayal only destroys those who don't know how to walk away. And if you've been waiting for a sign to let go of everything that no longer honors your soul, this is it. This is the moment. This is your silent scream, your unspoken permission, your farewell to all that once made you feel small. Now it's your turn. Your turn to become the kind of person who doesn't need applause to keep going, who no longer seeks redemption from those who have no soul left to offer. Someone who no longer begs for fairness from those already indebted to their own conscience. And if you've made it this far, it's not by chance. This video was never just entertainment. It was a mirror, an awakening, a ritual. Now the choice is yours, to decide what to do with what you've just seen. But if something deep inside stirred, If it touched something you've buried for too long, then do one thing. Subscribe, because this channel isn't for everyone. It's for those ready to break their masks, their excuses, their limits. And if you're one of them, leave a comment with this phrase: "I'm no longer who I was when this video began." That's how I'll know you're one of the awakened. I'll see you in the next one. But remember, the next time they betray you, underestimate you, ignore you, don't let them find you in the same place. Disappear from where you were never valued. Reappear where no one expected you. That's where real power begins. And you've just crossed that threshold. Welcome. Or better said, welcome back to yourself. See you in the shadows.